Okay, can everyone see my screen? Awesome. Wonderful. Okay, so here we go. So fueling for life and sport on a whole food plant-based diet. If you don't know who I am, my name is Kayla. I am a plant-based dietitian, nutrition run coach. I have a little bit more spiel about who I am. We're going to talk about the 10 best diets today. We're going to talk about plant-based diets, the pros and cons, and we're going to also talk about plant-based eating for performance, which will pertain to many of you here today. And then at the end, as I said, we will have a question Q&A. So here's a little bit more about me. I think most of you that are on this call right now, you've been following me. I've worked with Joyce. She's one of my previous clients for a really long time. We worked together for a whole year. And Michael is my boyfriend, so he knows me pretty well, but here's just a little bit about me. And I've been a runner and plant-based for it seems like a long time now. Believe it or not. I'm not that old, but I've been running and eating this way for a very long time. And I've been a dietitian for 8 years, which is really crazy. Time definitely goes so fast. So here are the 10 best diets overall in 2024 from the US News and World Report. So this just came out recently. And I wanted to share this because I think by just looking at this list, you can see that a lot of these diets are plant-based diets, which I think is really cool to see that a lot of the evidence for general health and reducing chronic disease is really pointing to plant-based diets. So that's pretty cool. So I wanted to just share that. What do all these diets have in common? They're all forms of plant-based diets, emphasizing our fruits, vegetables, lean proteins, grains, nuts, and seeds. And why are all these top diets plant-based? Well, for the most part, that report that comes out is more focused on weight loss. So I wanted to bring that up because we're going to shift into talking about eating for sport, right? Which is a little bit different, and we'll get there. But a lot of these diets have found that maintaining a whole food plant-based diet achieves greater weight loss compared to other dietary interventions that do not restrict calories or include exercise, which is why a lot of these plant-based diets are really popular for a lot of people. So their general public are their BMI may be higher. They may be recommended by their doctor to try to lose some weight. So often that is where people are going, and that is very different from anybody that is very active, which, as I said, we'll get there. Health benefits of a plant-based diet decreases risk of obesity, high blood pressure, hyperlipidemia, heart disease, dementia, and many cancers. So as I said, a plant-based diet can, decrease our risks for these chronic diseases that we're really seeing that are very popular in the States. Really. So I work at a nursing home. I've worked in hospitals. And these are the common chronic diseases that we're seeing because people are following a standard American diet and it's leading to these chronic diseases. So plant-based diet does the opposite. There's lots of evidence out there. These are just some studies here on plant-based diets. So the question here is, does weight loss equal health? So, and the question as well is, are all plant-based diets, whole food plant-based, vegan diets the same, and why are they used interchangeably? So we're going to answer these two questions here. So as it comes for weight loss, does weight loss equal health? Not necessarily, right? So weight loss doesn't always necessarily mean health. We still, even if we can lose weight in an unhealthy way. We want to be still changing our diet, making those lifestyle changes for health. So weight loss doesn't necessarily equate to health. As for performance, it doesn't also make us make us perform even better also. So we know that as well. Necessarily, it could help, but doesn't necessarily equate to better performance. And then as for the different types, so as I said, all those diets were all forms of plant-based diets. Now, there are many different forms of plant-based diets. So we use kind of plant-based diet as kind of the overarching, I guess, diet that you would put these under. Vegan would be, strict vegetarian. So that is the most strict because it includes all animal products, including honey. And then there's vegetarian, lacto-vegetarian, ovo-vegetarian, and lacto-ovo-vegetarian. So they all may include eggs or some dairy products. There's also pescatarian, would also fit into here. They would eat fish. So those all are considered to be plant-based diets. So plant-based diet doesn't just mean that you don't eat animal products. There's all, these would all be included as plant-based because the focus is more plants. So they're all considered vegetarian or plant-based diets. Here again is the differences of our plant-based diets. Also, what I didn't mention is the amount of, or if processed foods are allowed. So that is the biggest difference, which we're going to talk about here in a little bit directly too, about whole food plant-based diet. The whole food plant-based diet is, definitely one of those top diets that we've had research behind for, really for health that's beneficial. And now a whole food plant-based diet is, really minimally processed, well, really no processed food at all. Some of your, like, if you eat a vegan diet, you could still include vegan processed foods, right? So all of these, have a different amount of, if processed foods are allowed. And for me, I feel, or what I tell people is that's really a personal preference, right? You have to just have the information, understand the information that we have, and make that determination for your personal preference for, who you are. And we'll get into also, what my opinion is too on processed foods as it, goes into plant-based eating for sport or for endurance sports. So first, when we talk about processed foods, I wanted to give you guys a definition because this actually surprised me. So one of the recent nutrition conferences that I was in actually talked about, or I remember a dietitian mentioning in one of her presentations that black beans were still considered processed. And I thought, really? Black beans? Like, this is a food, right, that we as dietitians usually promote as a lean protein, high in fiber, but it's still considered processed under the USDA definition because it's undergone changes to its natural state and it has added sugar because, well, it's canned. I should say canned black beans is what I meant. Dried black beans would be not, no, but canned beans would be. And because they add that sodium, it, does make sense that they are processed. Most of our processed foods are going to have added sodium, added sugar, added fats. Those are the things in generally that we want to limit in our diet for our health as much as possible. So there's a definition. You guys can read that. I'm not going to read all of that, but I think it's helpful to understand what process is. And hopefully you understand too by this definition, it doesn't necessarily mean a bad thing. There are certain cases where we may use processed foods, or it just depends on the individual. I work with a lot of low-income population where a lot of times the food that they have available or that they can access are going to be canned foods. And I try to get them to do more canned beans because that's what they have available, or canned vegetables. And I just say, those are fine to use, just rinse them off, right? So it really all depends. As athletes, processed foods may be also acceptable in certain cases as well as an athlete because of the convenience factor. So, processed foods aren't necessarily a bad thing, but for general health, of course, we want to eat foods in the whole form as much as possible. But we all have to consider, what we're capable of, right? So we also are busy. If we have a family, if we're training, we got a lot going on, right? We're working. Like it sometimes it's helpful to have foods that are more convenient. So that is kind of my little take on processed foods. There are different types of processing according to our NOVA system. I'm not going to really get into this too much detail. Kind of gonna skip through some of this. As I said, there's a lot of information here, so that's why I'm kind of going quickly, and I will maybe skipping some of this here. So I'm just gonna skip through here, but I can send you guys these slides if anyone is interested. Here are just some examples of certain foods and, comparing them to the different states of minimally processed, processed, ultra processed foods, to give you guys an idea of what this processing means. So why have plant-based diets become so popular? Well, unlike some diets or diet programs, the vegan diet doesn't set limits on the number of calories or amount of food we can eat. As long as the food you're eating is an animal product, it fits into the vegan diet. So that's, very popular reasoning why plant-based diets have become so popular. I also think it somewhat has been a trend, and it's been trending, I think, that way for a while now. Because there's just more information that's getting out there about where food is coming from. And I think a lot of that can have to do with our food choices. Here's just a slide. I'm just showing you the interest of plant-based diets on the internet when I Google plant-based diets. So they're definitely, right? They're definitely very popular. Also, our documentaries, our vegan documentaries that are out there. So you may have watched some of these. The most recent one was January 1st on Netflix. They came out with You Are What You Eat, which was that twin experiment. A lot of people talked about that. They really showed more of the benefits of a vegan diet. Some people felt like it was a little biased. The study was a little biased because I believe it was sponsored by Beyond Meat. So we have to consider that, but they did show the data that some people, did have some good benefits from eating vegan. Other benefits of a plant-based diet, and this is specifically for vegan, environmental impact, animal welfare. Here's FAB. I threw in some transformation stories, and this is more on just the plant-based side of things for health. So there is FAB. Cons of plant-based diets, risk of nutrient deficiencies due to the absence of food groups, and it may be too strict and challenging to stick with long-term. So these are considerations we want to consider, and especially as athletes, nutrient deficiencies are something that we really want to understand what supplements we need to be taking or what foods we need to be eating more of to make sure we don't, because that can lead down the road to negative effects, right? Symptoms of common nutrient deficiency of a plant-based diet. So these are just important to know. So vitamin B12 deficiency, vitamin D deficiency, iodine deficiency, and omega-3 deficiency. These are all symptoms, of, those deficiencies, and you guys can read those. And sometimes it's hard to pinpoint exactly what those deficiencies are, but this is why it's helpful to see a dietitian to help you kind of figure out what could be a nutrient deficiency. Also getting blood work done as well and asking for them to take these labs. Sometimes that can be challenging because often if you're trying to use your insurance, has to have a reasoning. So sometimes it can be difficult, but I have been looking into other options for people to recommend to how to, get your blood work done and really have a good idea of what is your nutrition status. How are you doing, based on the way you've been eating for a while. So you have a better idea of what you're doing, if you're doing good, or if we need to change things. Another way we can look at this as well is by looking at a nutrition analysis, and that's something I've done with my previous clients. I've had them log in to or log their what they eat into Cronometer. And what's cool about Cronometer is I can look at to see if they're meeting these nutrients. So that can be helpful as well. And then I just have some, just to give you guys some idea of foods for these common nutrient deficiencies. So there are some foods that we can take. We don't always have to just take supplements. Often B12 and vitamin D, I would say, are probably the most common supplements that we recommend for somebody that especially is on a vegan, but usually plant-based, even just a plant-based diet is helpful. But especially vegan, because there's not a lot of foods, but there are some foods. The one that is widely known that has a good or high amount of vitamin B12 is nutritional yeast. Some of you may have used this before. It's a cheesy flavor. It works really well, if you make vegan macaroni and cheese, sprinkling on, your meals, a lot of different ways. But 2 tablespoons equals 630% the daily value. So I do know some vegans that don't take a vitamin B12 supplement. They just make sure they use nutritional yeast. Vitamin D. Vitamin D is probably the most common nutrient deficiency we see across the board. Any client that comes to see me, whether they're an athlete or not, they usually most of the time, we just don't seem to get enough sun. The sun is probably the best source of vitamin D. And vitamin D, of course, is also in dairy. So if you don't drink dairy, you may not get vitamin D. So about 1 cup of the mushrooms do have vitamin D, and that's because they're treated with ultraviolet light. So 1 cup of mushrooms equals about 7 IUs. Then we also have, what else? So iron, a plant-based source of iron would be, your high source of iron would be spinach. I actually think that's basil now that I'm looking at that picture. I'm like, that looks like basil and strawberries. But I wanted a strawberry salad because that's often what I recommend if people are trying to increase their iron or make sure they're getting enough iron, which is also very important for anybody to have enough iron, but especially for athletes and endurance athletes. I actually had an endurance athlete that passed out and had to go to the hospital because her iron was so low, and she was a college athlete. So iron is very, very important, and because we don't eat meat, it can be a little more challenging to get enough iron, but we definitely can. So the plant-based source of iron is non-heme iron. And so spinach is high in iron, but vitamin C helps absorb that iron in our body. So eating like a strawberry spinach salad is an example. Of course, adding more, adding protein, adding a grain. We don't want to, as an athlete, we really shouldn't be just eating a spinach salad. It's probably not enough food for you as an athlete for a meal, but that is an example. Zinc, we need to also make sure we're eating enough zinc. We can find zinc in lentils, chickpeas, and sunflower seeds. Iodine is one we forget about. Actually, I feel like we forget about iodine, but iodine is something that we need. We can get iodine from iodized salt. And this is actually one reason why for athletes. So the general public's, a lot of my nursing home residents have high blood pressure. So I'm always educating them about reducing their sodium, not adding extra salt to their food. But as athletes, I do recommend them to also have iodized salt and not just sea salt, right? Sea salt doesn't have iodine in it. So iodized salt, table salt, can be helpful if, you're not getting enough iodine in your diet, because that is something our bodies need, especially as athletes. Omega-3s. Omega-3s, if you don't eat fish. If you're pescatarian, you're probably getting enough omega-3s. If you're vegan, you may need to supplement or make sure you're eating enough flaxseed and chia seeds in your diet. So I actually should have put those slides after this one for this to make so much more sense. But these are the supplements that are usually needed on a plant-based diet. So if you haven't seen this vegan plate before, I want to give credit to Brenda Davis. She is another registered dietitian that came up with this vegan plate. And I really love it because it doesn't just give you like the amounts here, but she actually gives you foods. And she also puts these calcium-rich foods in the middle. So I think it's really cool. Plus, she also tells you what other supplements you need, which is really cool. And those are all the ones that I just listed. So those are all for, generally somebody that's plant-based, not necessarily an athlete, but we're going to get to that. Here's another transformation story that I wanted to share here. So diet versus a lifestyle change. The key is finding the eating pattern that you can stick with long term. So this is something I feel like as dietitians, we promote a lot and we say a lot to our clients is any changes to your diet, you want it to be long term. And you want it to align with your values and beliefs. And I feel like for a lot of people, that's why they turn to plant-based diets or vegan, because it does, align more with their beliefs. We just don't want to be doing something or eating in a certain way because it's trendy. Because we think that, plant-based diet or vegan diet is going to make us a better runner, right? We don't want to be doing this for those reasons. We want to be making this change because we want to live a healthy lifestyle and we want to do it the right way. So that is very, very important. So let's get into what you guys probably are here for and what you want to know. What about for active individuals? Can you be on a plant-based diet? Absolutely. So I will say we don't have a lot of research. There's still not a lot of research, but it's getting there. I can tell you, being in this field now for 8 years, when I first started diving into plant-based diets, when I first went plant-based as a runner, and as a new dietitian, it was hard to find any research at all. Because it's becoming so popular, and especially with athletes, they are doing more research. So we're getting there. If you don't know what the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics is, that's our overarching body that kind of governs registered dietitians. They do support vegetarian diets for athletes. So that is really great that we have the support of the Academy, especially as a dietitian. And there's just some other quotes I have there. Here's our position statement from our Academy, that plant-based diet can support an active lifestyle. And here are some plant-based athletes. So there's a lot of plant-based athletes that are well known. These are all pro athletes. And they are, really excelling in their sport as somebody that is vegan and plant-based. And you've probably have heard, I know all over, at least my feed on social media has been of Jasmine Paris, who just finished or completed, or actually she's the first woman to complete the Bali Marathon, which is a 100-mile race, and it is they run up the equivalent, I believe, of Mount Everest, like through the woods, not even in a trail. Twice. So it is a very, very hard race. You have to finish within 60 hours. And Jasmine finished with 99 seconds left. So it is super exciting. I bring her up because everyone's like, asking, is she vegan? Is she vegan? I don't know if she's really openly vegan. I have listened to a podcast interview with her before I think it was last year, the podcast that I listened to, the interview that she was on. She didn't openly say she was vegan, but she did create the Green Runners. If you guys can, certainly look that up and see about that. But it does look like she does eat more plant-based for the environment side of things. And so I assume she probably does eat most closely to vegan. Definitely have to do more research to really see. So she didn't really say on her interview that she was vegan, but she has created the Green Runners, and it does look like they are a plant-based athlete kind of organization. So that's pretty cool. Because plant-based foods have antioxidants, your body can heal and recover from a hard session faster. The first thing the athlete will feel when they go plant-based is inflammation leaving the body, and that makes it so much easier to eat to reach the rest of your goals. And then here's another quote from Scott Jurek. He's a well-known vegan ultra runner. He had a very similar experience as well, that his recovery and his immune system was really good, and that really helped him to continue to train as he put in the hours every day, and all of that. So I just wanted to share some proof of quotes from from athletes that have, and a doctor that shows why, how plant-based eating can be helpful. Because again, we don't have a lot of research with plant-based and sports, but we're getting there. So as a registered dietitian marathon runner, what do I choose to eat? A predominantly whole food, plant-based vegan diet. Number one is health and weight management. And that's why I say, or I call myself plant-based, because I don't always eat whole food plant-based, although I would say I align as much as possible eating whole foods as much as possible, but not always. And I'm not always necessarily, I feel like I fit into the vegan category, even though sometimes I do say plant-based vegan, because I do, like, I don't eat really any animal products. But I'm not also super strict. And so I also, really when I first when I went vegan, it was more for that health part of it. Number two aligns with my beliefs of not needing to kill animals to eat them. Number three, the environment. And number four, performance recovery. So my reasoning behind, certainly isn't number one, performance recovery. But as I said, starting to get more research, it does sound like there could be some benefits of that, which is really cool. But I still feel like at this point, it's still something that's beneficial. We still can't necessarily recommend a plant-based diet as a dietitian. We don't have enough research and evidence to recommend to eat plant-based necessarily for performance or recovery as an athlete. So let's talk about some benefits of plant-based diets for athletes. Health benefits and prevention of illness, number one, which we just talked about. As especially with running or endurance sports, we're putting stress on our body. So we really want to keep our immune system as strong as possible, because we are going to be more prone to illness. So keeping a strong immune system is really important. And we can do that by eating foods that are high in antioxidants is really helpful. It can also help us keep a lean body mass, which can also be helpful for our sport. Improved energy and performance, as we just talked about. That's usually the biggest, well, actually faster recovery, faster recovery is probably the one that personal experiences, information that we have that has helped or has been beneficial to eat plant-based is that faster recovery. I kind of just explained all this, but kind of go into more detailed here. see if I touched on everything. Oh, just a little bit more about this. So how plant-based diets help energy and performance is that they facilitate glycogen storage. So to facilitate glycogen storage, we need carbohydrates. A plant-based diet is naturally higher in carbohydrates versus compared to any other combination of like diets of the combination of the macronutrients. So if you eat a predominantly plant-based diet, you're going to be mostly eating carbohydrates, which is really beneficial for endurance athletes because that is our body's preferred energy choice is carbohydrates, and they facilitate that glycogen storage. If you've ever experienced the hitting the wall or feeling like your legs are cement and can't go anymore, whether you're cycling or running, that it basically you've used up all your glycogen stores in your body's just like, I can't go. Like I need food, I need carbohydrates to keep going. Also, plant-based eating can reduce our blood viscosity and increase our tissue oxidation. Faster recovery, again, the antioxidants is really why we have the faster recovery. So we're eating more fruit, blueberries and raspberries and strawberries and cherries, broccoli and beets, right? All of these things are really going to help us reduce our oxidative stress. And there's just some examples of foods that are best for recovery. So beets, some vegetables there, cherry juice, I think pomegranates I also mentioned yesterday. Recommendations. So we want to meet our recommended caloric needs based on our training. We want to meet our micronutrient needs by appropriate meal planning, supplementation, and we want to focus on nutrient timing and fueling pre, during, and post workouts. And I will put this here because I also wanted to put this in here or note this, that it may be appropriate at times to choose simple carbohydrates or minimally processed foods to fuel appropriately in certain circumstances. And that's why I talked about a little bit about the difference between eating for weight loss, eating for plant-based in general for health versus for sport. And why I also wanted to talk about processed foods, because processed foods aren't necessarily a bad thing. As an athlete, we may need simple carbohydrates because those are the quickest source of energy we can get. So during an event, during a race, that is the best choice, right? Because if we have anything high in fiber, that could cause GI distress. So simple carbs are best, and sometimes minimally processed foods are helpful, again, to fuel appropriately. Finding and meeting caloric needs. We want to estimate our financial needs, then add those needs based on those training days. And we may need to increase our calories or carbs or protein. And we can do this by meal planning using our performance plates or exchanges. And endurance athletes may need up to 2,500 to 3,000 plus calories a day, depending on your activity for that day. And I wanted to throw that out there because most of the plant-based athletes that have mostly been runners, but have came to me are eating less than 2,000 calories. Now, the general public should be eating around 2,000 calories. For most people, they actually need less than that because of their activity level so low. But athletes, because we're so active, that calorie amount can be very high. And to eat that much, just eating plant-based is not an easy task. I will say you really have to be somebody that likes food or know how to get in a lot of calories often, or like in shakes, those sort of things, if you're just using real whole foods. So let's quickly just look at our plant-based performance plates. This is the one that I created here. This is the moderate level plate. I did actually recently find a vegetarian plant-based plate for athletes, which is super cool. I did not know this even existed when I was putting this presentation together. Actually, I put this together for another plant-based group. I saw this and I thought, That's awesome. I'm so glad there is. And I think our plate looks very similar to that, which is really cool. I do have 3 levels. I'm just showing this is the most common one because level 3 would be zone 3, which is usually like an easy run. So probably most of your run days would look like this. Oh, here they are. I did put it in here. So there's the 3 plates. Again, these are the ones that I created. Your energy needs increase with intensity and duration. So you can see that the carbohydrates increase is really the biggest difference. Again, the differences of eating plant-based for weight loss versus performance. I think I just kind of talked about this already, but again, weight loss is more focused on calorie deficiency. It's also, when you look at the macronutrients, it's lower in fat and lower in protein. For athletes, we need calories, energies usually above maintenance. We also need more fats, more proteins, and we may include protein shakes, smoothies, or minimally processed foods. And I know, please don't come at me that that's not whole food plant-based, and I know it is not, but I will give you guys some, I believe I put it in here, but I will give you examples, or I do have a list of foods that you can fuel with for during races that would be, okay, that may not cause GI upset, but are still considered whole foods. There are whole food options out there. But those I do recommend more for longer events or distances, like ultra runners. I think works really well, choosing more of those whole food sources, because how many chews and gels can we really eat at one time? So if we're doing a really long distance, event, it may make sense, definitely to use those whole food sources. Meal planning guidelines. So as I said, to meet those calorie needs, we may really have to get creative. We may have to be eating often. In the general guidelines that I give for my athletes are 3 meals plus 2 to 3 snacks a day. And that includes a pre and post workout snack. We want to include a whole grain starch, non-starchy vegetable, plant-based protein, and healthy fats for meals, and fruit plus healthy fat and our protein plus carb starch for snacks. And we want to include low fiber foods right before our runs. And here's just an example of breakfast for a moderate day. So maybe we're just going on a easy run day. That's what that would look like. Here's an example for lunch for a moderate meal day. Here's dinner, again, for a moderate day. And here is a race day plate. I don't really know if this is a vegan burger, but that's what I was trying to look up, like a vegan Beyond Burger, but I'm not really sure because it actually looks like meat, but that is what I was trying to go for. And this is actually my go-to post-race meal usually. Because it contains protein, got vegetables, our carbs, right? Our potatoes, starches. This is the Plant-Based Athletes Food Pantry staple items. So I came up with a list of, what to keep in your pantry. That's helpful. This is part of, I believe, this list I made when I created, my recipe club. So if you're part of my recipe club subscription, you'll see this in there. I give you access to that list. I don't know why I have these in here again, so we're gonna skip through those. We already did that. This is all the same thing. Oh, there we go. I probably tried to move things around and forgot where I put things. Okay. So I don't know, I should have moved these slides around, but supplements needed on a plant-based diet as an athlete. So these are the other ones for athletes. I think we did already talk about zinc. Don't think we talked about calcium or taurine, which is amino acid. There is one that there's another amino acid that It's not listed here, but leucine is also one that is important that we make sure we get enough of in our diet. Or, BCAAs are popular just to make sure you're getting all your amino acids. We already kind of talked a little bit of supplements. As for sports supplements, here are some that that I recommend or that I've had, previous patient clients use. These are what we want to look for. For sports supplements, we definitely want to look for this Informed Choice and NSF certification in sport. Those are things we definitely want to look for. We know that supplements are not all regulated, so that's what we want to look for. Protein powders, pea protein is known to be the best plant-based protein there is. For some people, it is harder to digest, and not really sure why. For some people, but it is recommended to be the best protein to look for. Here is a sample plant-based endurance 2500 kcal meal plan to give you guys just an idea of what this looks like. So this is doable. It's very doable to eat plant-based and eat 2500 calories. So that's just a typical week. I have these slides in here again. Nutri timing plus pre, during, post fueling. So here are just some guidelines for timing when it comes to fueling. And I did add the list. Okay, so this is what I was talking about, whole food, plant-based options of, what could I eat, during a long endurance event. Again, I do feel that it makes sense to just stick with chews and or gels during a shorter event like a half marathon or marathon, but anything longer than that, like an Ironman, a ultra marathon, right? We're probably going to want to use more whole food plant-based sources. That just makes sense too. These are some options that we can use. I actually do often use dates. I did use them also in my half marathon that I just ran. So that is
Those work really well. Oh,
dates.
dates, yeah. That's my
Yes, they really
dates,
do. I
peanut butter, and
recently started
bananas. That's
using
my
them.
pre-run.
Oh, what's that?
Dates, peanut butter, and banana is my pre-run.
Oh, perfect. Yeah, that's a great combination. Yeah, definitely great. Awesome. Here are just some resource books. I just wanted to make sure you guys are aware of these. These are the three I know of. There's not a lot of plant-based sports nutrition books out there. This forever has been like my Bible. Really good scientific information in there if you guys really want to know the nuts and bolts and understand that science of behind everything. It's a really good book. The Plant-Based Athlete that came out most recently, maybe a couple years now, by Matt Fraser and Robert Cheek. You might know Matt Fraser is he created the plant-based or the No Meat Athlete. You may know that brand. And Robert Cheek is, I believe, a vegan bodybuilder. He does a lot of speaking gigs as well. I feel like I see him around a lot. And then the Vegan Athlete's Nutrition Handbook is written by another dietitian. I actually kind of gave her a review. So you will see my name actually in that book. So I had to shout that out because I am in her book that she had, but she's got some really great information, a lot of very similar information that I share. Here's some more resources, and I can send you guys these later as well if you're looking for
The
resources.
Brennan Brazier book, the one that you listed there, Thrive, was kind of my go-to.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
Awesome.
that's a good one. And he actually has a
Yeah.
pantry list as well, which I like that you included the pantry list because I feel like half of this is being ahead, like you have to have this stuff ahead of time before you're hungry.
Yes. Yes. Definitely. Definitely. Yeah. And that is definitely key of fueling like, yeah, before. Like as athletes, we need to be, yeah,
By the
constantly.
time you're hungry, it's too late.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yep. Yep. And that's where planning is definitely key. Yep, definitely. So here are just some success stories of past clients that I wanted to share. So I'm just going to kind of quickly go through these, but you guys can read some of these success quotes. And I'm not going to play these videos, but I do have some client testimonial videos. Some is Laura. Jessie helped her run her first half marathon. All right. And so now I want to go into how can I help? So you may have seen me talk about this on social media. I've been kind of alluding to this. This is basically, I wanted to do this webinar and kind of have this as my kind of official launch into the Run on Plats Academy and give you guys an idea of what this is, what you're going to learn, and all of that. So it is a course. I think it'll take about 6 weeks. There's 6 modules, so it kind of just depends on how fast you go through it. But it basically gives you a lot of this information that I shared, but also more of, how do we eat properly? How do we make sure we're fueling enough? How do we, make sure we're meeting our needs for our macros, macronutrients, and micronutrients, right? So I go more into like, how do we do that? How do I figure that out? And so this is how it's set up. So these are the first 3 modules. If you were on any of my lives this month, so every Wednesday I went live in our Facebook group, and I kind of gave you guys an idea of what each phase was. So we start with the introduction, the pre-foundation phase, the foundational phase. Module 3, our build peak phase, and Module 4, taper recovery and beyond phase in Module 5, and then our conclusion. So as I said, it's 6 modules, so not super long, but a lot of great information. And what's also included that I want to make sure you guys know about as well is, as I said, of like, how can I how do I eat for myself? I think the key in this course that's going to be really key is it does go through more specifically with meal planning and help you to do that, because as I said, that is definitely key. And also with the energy sheets. So I mentioned down here, I did a video recently of like kind of giving you guys an overview of what those energy sheets look like, because I feel like these are really key. And that's kind of just my solution for now until I can figure out if I could find someone that's an engineer that could create an app for us, because I think that would be really key. Or like some type of calculator. I'm sure there's a way to do it. I'm not really tech savvy, so that's kind of my solution that I have. Basically, it's an Excel spreadsheet, and it's broken down by our levels, which makes sense when you go through the course. That will make more sense. And I talk more about, exchanges and how we can keep track of all our exchanges to also meet our needs. That's how you'll get that information. You basically just have to plug in your numbers, like your individual numbers for you, and the sheets will give you, the exchanges. So the amounts of foods, like you should eat 4 fruits. If you have this for this training day, you should eat 4 fruits a day. You should have 5 grains a day, that sort of thing. So it just gives you more guidance on what that meal plan should look like. Oh, here's the video that I did of the energy sheets. You guys kind of get a better idea. Let's see, how are we doing on time? Yeah, so I don't want to take up too much of your guys' time. So if you haven't seen this, I I can definitely send this video to you. I'm skip through that. I am giving 3 bonuses. So I am also giving a meal planning guide plus template. So what's really cool about this is you can use this template. So the energy sheets will give you your exchanges. And then by using this meal planning guide and template, you can create a meal plan for yourself. You also get a certificate after completing the course, and you'll also have access to our Plant Powered Athlete Facebook group, which I believe all of you are actually already in. So just to give you an idea of the value of what I'm getting you guys, you probably, if you've been on previous webinars like this before, you've seen this kind of breakdown to just kind of help you see the value of what we're getting. So I'm giving you guys $2,100 of value. I don't know why I put this slide here, but this course is for plant-based marathon, ultra, road, trail runners, plant-based triathletes, and plant-based curious active individuals. So if you're just like not sure if this isn't for you, this is who this course is created for. So if you enroll, this is what you're going to get. And then this is what the payment would look like. So as I said, it's, $2,100 of value. It's really, it would only be a $1,500 one-time payment or 3 payments of $500. And that also includes my recipe club plus a weekly group coaching calls for 3 months. So that is why I don't think I mentioned that either. My other offers I can also help is I do have a recipe club. This is where you'll receive recipes or basically a meal plan, but they're really just meal ideas, 1 meal idea a day, mostly dinner. But that's for an entire month. So that is also what I've been using for our meals for the entire month. So it's been pretty cool to create this, be able to give this to you guys. It takes me a lot of time to do it. But it's really nice, I think, for us to just have something to already follow and know, okay, here's our meals. And I know these meals have enough protein in them because I've been picking them out, making sure they all have 15 to 20 grams of protein per meal. So it's, really good idea if you don't have a lot of time to plan out meals. That's definitely something, that's super helpful. So I do have my recipe club, but that I've recently launched that earlier, so I don't know how many people know about it. I think earlier this year I launched that for the first time. And then if you did just want to buy the course, so what I am offering previously was, basically kind of like a group program because we'd be also having group calls so you guys could get extra support from me. But you can also just purchase the course as well and go through it yourself. So kind of giving you guys some options here with what works for you, works for your budget, what makes more sense and what's the best fit for you as well. And I think that's it. So I did pretty good. I can't believe I actually got through all of that in an hour. I actually thought that could take me 2 hours to get through all that information. So I will stop sharing and see if anyone has any questions. Feel free, either about the content or the course or anything like that. Let me know. Any questions?
I think that's it.
Okay,
Yeah.
awesome.
Okay. Sorry. I don't know if anybody can hear me or not. I have worked
Yes.
with a nutritionist in the past, so it is something that I'm considering
Okay.
again, but I'm just getting back into training.
Yes, I know you've been injured.
Yep, I have
Yeah.
been. So I worked with a gal out of Colorado.
Uh-huh.
And we did
Nice.
some of the stuff is very on point with what you were talking about. So
Awesome.
I won't take up any of the group's time, but it's definitely on my radar.
Awesome.
Okay.
Wonderful.
All right. Well, thank you
Great.
very
Well, thank you
much,
for
Kayla.
joining.
Yeah. All right. Thank you.
You're welcome. Bye.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.